Check.
Okay.
A little bit of feedback, but we can deal with this. All right. Welcome everybody. Welcome to Locust Projects. You're currently in the DiLL, the Digital Innovation Lounge and Lab. My name is Andrew McLeese. I am the newest Art and Digital Innovation Manager here at Locust Projects. So I oversee the investment in tech for the organization, as well as the programming as it pertains to digital. Tonight we have a really, really great program. This is Locust Late at the DiLL. It's a peer-to-peer skill sharing late night event that promotes basically the sharing of knowledge amongst artists, technologists, and creative professionals. So before I introduce the workshop and guests for tonight, I want to just let everybody know that we have a couple upcoming workshops. We have a VR workshop with ArtBot T from Liz and Bo. It's an artist collective. The exhibition is currently in our project room. That is on September 26th, a Thursday. We have an AR workshop with Felice Groden, whose exhibition in 2018 over at PAM was considered one of the first augmented reality exhibitions in the country. And then we also have a 3D immersive environment workshop with Alec Groden, who's worked extensively with organizations such as the Secret Celluloid Society, Night Owl, and very interesting fellow unto itself. So, I want to get started just introducing Frozen Music. Frozen Music is comprised of Gustavo Matamoros, Rene Barge, and David Dunn. David can't be here tonight. He lives in New Mexico, but his contributions will be felt. All right. So, essentially, Frozen Music started in around 2009 with they design and realize immersive sound environments in response to acoustic characteristics of the site. So essentially what they're going to do tonight is talk a little bit about their practice as well as demonstrate how they tune the rooms. Frozen Music also has an upcoming exhibition over at the Deering Estate. That'll be on Saturday, September 28th, and Sunday, September 29th. First, part 1 is from 2 to 5 on Saturday, and part 2 is from 3 to 6 on Sunday. That'll be an extended durational performance, an expansion of what you'll see here tonight. So, without further ado, I introduce you to Frozen Music. Thank you.
Welcome everybody. So I'm Gustavo.
I'm René Barge. Hello.
And with David is on the picture on your left hand side.
Yes.
Right. That's a photograph we took when we were doing a project, a piece at the Soundscape Park in Miami Beach. Our piece then, you know, I don't know if you guys know this, but the sound system in the Soundscape Park has 167 speakers, and they can all be accessed individually. Except that's not the way the symphony utilizes them. Because the system was actually originally intended to broadcast concerts that were happening live in the concert hall, projected on the wall of the building, and then utilizing the sound system to try to reproduce as best as possible the sound of the performance, right? So so René is gracefully navigating This is a page on our website, the Subtropics website, called Frozen Music, which you can visit anytime. This is an image from that evening's performance. And in our case, we didn't use 167 speakers, we used 120. And not because 167 was too many speakers for us, but because those 120 speakers were the most alike, right, in the system, all right? And then, so what we were looking for was a uniformity in the presentation of the sound into the space, right? And as you be able to hear tonight, tonight we're only using 4, which is not as many for us as we'd like to have, but good enough. This is the very minimum for the music. One of the things we like to do is move sound around in the space. So, for some reason, the movement of sound, right, in space helps us realize things about architecture, about context, right, etc., etc. So, when I talk about this, it would be helpful to, of course, talk about sound and what it is, etc., etc. But maybe we'll somehow, as we describe the difference of frozen music projects, we'll get to, you know, kind of talk a little bit about the sound. And one very important thing I think that's good to keep in mind as we, you know, go through these projects is that sound is not flat. Sound is almost like my friend, the sound artist Rosa Freleng, describes it as a three-dimensional, massless object, okay? That has the capacity of occupying space and function in 3 dimensions, right? So we experience sound, you know, sometimes through the headphones, and when we do that, we're listening to some other space. It's not the space that we're in at the moment, right? So one of the ideas for frozen music is to do things in a space to try to bring out the personality of that space, the acoustical signature, right? And to, you know, somehow, so it is, at least to my ears, and I'm sure for Rene similar, it's a unique experience. It's like you're bringing sounds into a space that you don't know, and you're trying to figure out how both things relate to each other, right? And then that interaction, which is in some way kind of like a good metaphor, is like a feedback loop, right? In other words, it requires listening. So we put out a sound, but we need to hear it back. And then what we hear biases what we do next. And then slowly we, you know, this is why also Frozen Music is a project that from the very beginning was defined in terms of extended duration pieces, right? So it takes a long time sometimes to tune, you know, to get to know a space really, you know, carefully. And it also depends on the sounds that you bring, because, you know, unless you spend a lot of time in a space and then get to know everything at once, then you can make a symphony, right? Out of all the sounds only the sounds that maybe belong to that space, but that's not often possible or desirable sometimes. In other words, the frozen music experience is as much a discovery for us as it is for you as an audience. And maybe Rene has something else to say.
Okay, all right, thank you. I wanted to say thanks to Locust Projects for having me and Gustavo out. Initially, when they approached me about doing this event, I felt that it would be inappropriate to just have me here because I work so closely with Gustavo and with David Dunn, and to speak about how we organize sound in a space would have been inappropriate without Gustavo here, and we wanted to have David Dunn here tonight, but unfortunately he couldn't make it out here tonight. And so one of the things that brings us together is we seem to have, while each of us as individuals have a very unique approach to how we handle and organize sound and what seems to be the aesthetic tickle for us. The one thing that brings us together is that we seem to have an understanding for how sound works in the natural world. And over the course of time, without a doubt, I've been working with these well over 10 years. I don't know, maybe
No,
2003
like
or
almost like
yeah,
2003,
or maybe even
2004.
sooner. I lost track.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. And the thing that's the most endearing is that I think that we have an understanding, or I'm confident that we have an understanding for organizing sound in a way that is not disruptive or is more complementary to how living organisms or the natural world organizes sound. So, you know, when Gustavo speaks to you about taking time and organizing sound and tuning to the environment, it's very similar to the way that, for example, I'm going to use I'm going to illustrate mating season for frogs, which has been a kind of like an emergent, or it's been trending recently here in South Florida because of the extreme amount of rains that we've had. We have a rebounding of population in frogs. And so when frogs are mating in their environment, they are very careful, right, about how they position sound in that space. And they're very careful about, and there's plenty of evidence and data about it, they're very careful about not perturbing other living organisms around them. And they're very careful about merging, not just with the space, but other living organisms in that space. And I've always felt that Gustavo, David, we have sort of a knack for wanting to organize space in a way that there are perturbations, and sometimes, I think for many years we've said this, sometimes those sounds get along, and sometimes they don't, and even if they don't, it's okay. But if you observed frogs during mating season, they know where to position their sounds to attract mate. It could be within a very small piece of body of water, because that water produces resonating frequencies. It could be under a structure of decaying leaves. It could be embedded within nooks and crannies within the overall system. And the phenomena that emerges as a result of all of these frogs communicating with one another to draw, right, what gets along, but what we perceive as maybe not getting along, or if you're in tune and you really like getting along, But what happens is there's a very acute merging to the space that what happens as a result is not the same thing that happens when we're hearing sound from speakers at home or in our car. The sound doesn't seem to come from a certain point in space, but it comes from within the overall space and range. And then what happens after that is you start to stack, you know, smaller ecologies, smaller ecologies and acoustic phenomena, and you have a much more broader array, an array of phenomena that emerges from that. And I've been in music and art for years. I grew up to a family of musicians and everything. And with Gustavo and with David Dunn, this is the thing that stands out, because you're not hearing things so much with your ear or your inner, cochlear in your inner ear, but it becomes physical, and the whole experience becomes physical. And that's what I think brings us together. So there's an understanding of resonant frequencies in acoustic spaces that are indoors and out of doors, and over time and experience, it's been mastered, and that's what I think that's the beauty that we bring. We're not operating outside of, we're not bringing something into a place and just putting it there. We are merging with the space in an act of, I think, as an act of nature.
Yeah, I think that in another way, what Rene just was talking about is perhaps how to listen to frozen music. It's not like going to a regular concert where you go and listen to the content of a song, somebody's speaking words and they're delivering messages and using musical material to support the delivery of the messages, etc., etc. With us, the notion is more about the experience, creating an experience that can be perceived. Unlike when I was in school, that I was told, well, the such and such a chord relates to this other chord, and here's a record and an example, and you would hear, well, no, that wasn't it, maybe something, and then, it was always very conceptual, and I was always missing the experience. It's like, I still wonder what it meant, right? So I had to go on my own and trying to figure out what that information was. Luckily for us, there are libraries, and we even, and now, of course, there's the internet and, all the fabulous tools that sometimes work really well, and sometimes, they have the ups and downs. But for the most part, all the information that we need is now so accessible, so easy to find. Except the experiences, right? So one thing that I kind of, think needs to be complementary to our experience of the internet. The internet is nothing but an interface, okay? So it does not necessarily give you the experience of reality, right? It mitigates your idea of what reality is. So what frozen music tries to do, even though we do use electronics and things like that, what we're after is creating an experience that is actually real, that's tangible for you, and that you can use as a way to connect with reality, rather than a concept or an idea. So that's
One one of the things I want to add to that too is that oftentimes it requires us to go into the studio and craft the necessary technology to reach those depths, because oftentimes there's a lot going on around us that we cannot perceive, and so in order for us to really dig deep, we have to build that technology and customize that technology for our ends.
Yes.
And there's a couple of pictures of us here designing and building microphones for that purpose, and using technology, to just kind of to access that and bring that surprise for ourselves, so that then we can bring it to others.
Yes. Yeah, so in other words, the world is, full of sound, right? And many sounds that are happening we're unable to perceive with our naked ears, right? So some sounds are happening in frequencies that are beyond our hearing capacity, or maybe they're too faint, right? And et cetera, et cetera. So one thing that we do is build tools to try to capture some of the sounds, right? And then so that we can utilize them in the context of frozen music. So there are many levels to frozen music. We are going to do a demonstration tonight of the typical frozen music experience. I'm also going to incorporate within that experience a process that is the process that I utilize to try to analyze the acoustical signature of a space, right? It's a very simple process. I'm less of a scientist, more of an artist, so it's kind of more rock and roll than the average. But I do need science to be able to after I do I go through the process, right? I have to use tools to be able to identify what frequencies am I hearing and so on. We'll have a little bit of that tonight. I'm not sure when would be a good time in our presentation to open it up for questions, if like right now or after the performance. So maybe, we might need some guidance.
I just have one question.
Sure.
What would be the best place to sit to listen to this experience?
That's a good question.
Walk around.
And that's the hardest question to answer. And the reason why is because sound, if I knew where to stand, first of all,
It was a trick question.
that's okay, but you know what? But this is very, very. I'm gonna answer it. This is the way I'm gonna answer it. The trouble with sound is, how do you know what's the best sound that you can hear, right? So if sound is moving around, and you are also moving around, then is the best place like in the middle, in the center? At some point sound is going to get to you. Now, is that going to be the best acoustically, a proper place? See, all of these are ideas that we have kind of grown to embrace because of music. For instance, in music we have the idea of the concert hall, which is supposed to be striving for the best acoustics, right? But the best acoustics for what? Well, for an orchestra. So I'll give you an example. In the 80s, right, Miami Light Projects did Miami Light Projects did a project with a composer, Tania Leon, and it was a big project. So she was commissioned to create a piece for orchestra with the New World Symphony. And she said, I want to work with all different percussion traditions in Miami. So she, tried tap into all the different, Puerto Rican percussion, Cuban percussion. She got like 7 or 8 different, percussion traditions, right? That have manifestations here in Miami. And her idea was to do this orchestral thing that included all these percussion. So the final piece was presented at the Lincoln Theater, which was the prior concert hall that the New World Symphony had. I don't know if it was a good piece because the percussion would overpower the orchestra. The acoustics of the concert hall were in no way good for the percussion that was being brought in. The acoustics were tuned for orchestral instruments, right? So, that was my experience of it. In other words, it was a beautiful idea, it was a beautiful project, but the experience of it was not what I think they really intended it to be. And the reason why was because I think the acoustical environment was not a good environment for that. So with sound, it's really hard to tell unless you are actually doing what we're doing. And so we hope to tune the space for you tonight. And if we're successful, you'll know what we mean.
Could you please elaborate a little bit more about these custom microphones you're designing and what is your goal or purpose? Are you experimenting with transducer materials or directionality? I'm just really curious to hear that.
I think, okay, so in this case I'm going to talk for David. David Dunn is a bioacoustician. And one of the things he's famous for is developing transducers for different purposes. One of the things that I know he invented that nobody else did before he did was a microphone to record bark beetles inside the trees. Okay? And how did he do it? Well, he rigged a mid thermometer, right? Which is a casing, right? That allows you to insert itself into the bark and then rig it with a piezoelectric element, and he made a whole album called The Sound of Light in Trees, it's called. And if you can get a hold of that record, which is out of print, is basically bark beetles inside a tree.
It's under the name David Dunn.
David Dunn, yes. Yeah, please look him up.
Thank you.
That's him right there. He should be like very famous. He's famous to us.
There was at one point a broadcast about the work that he did on NPR. They kind of sensationalized it and made it like what would happen if you played Metallica or Motley Crue to bark beetles, and then they turned it into hogwash. But he's the guy behind it. He's 100% the guy behind that. And
well, his last project with a physicist is by the name of Jim Crossfield. They're friends. They developed a design for an underwater, well, for the hydrophone, ambisonic hydrophone. And they just came back from testing it in Alaska, recording whales and stuff like that. So those recordings are actually, wow, incredible. So as far as I know, that's the first ambisonic hydrophone ever. Right? So anyway, if you don't know about ambisonic sound is a way of making recordings that attempt to record in 360, but it's not even 360. It's more like global, spherical, because it records up and down and all sides. So right now I'm in residence at the I-360 Theater FIU. It's a cylindrical screen, and anytime you guys would like to go there, they have an ambisonic sound system, and I'm making work over there, following that strategy. It's a Dolby. The thing with these formats is that there's a corporation behind it, and they have a particular interest in it becoming a thing. And so, but this idea of immersive sound and all that, it's not as easy as it looks. The status of these formats like Ambio or Sony, they call it Atmos, right? Dolby. There are different strategies, and they're still trying to figure out how to make it work. It's like right now we're in the era of Betamax against VHS. We don't know which one is going to be better than the other, and that's kind of what's happening in the realm of ambisonics and all that. Anyway, I regress.
How do you feel about the sound that's really pinpointed to you, like how they have in the Sphere in Las Vegas, where it's pinpointed exactly to the seat where you're at, and it makes it some kind of immersive thing at your seat?
That's nice. Well, it's nice that they can do that, right?
You're talking about that sphere that they have?
Yes. I think that's not necessarily that's exactly what this idea of ambisonic sound is. The thing is, they have so many speakers. I forget how many speakers they have, but they have hundreds. Just like the Soundscape Park. Now, we should be paying attention to that project because they have the speakers. So now what we need to do is more experiments to try to explore it right there. So we can all listen to it, not have to go to Las Vegas. All right, anyway, so maybe
Let's tune.
let's tune, yes. Okay, so I guess we'll do a demonstration of what frozen music. Let's see if there's a better image. Okay, this is the history of frozen music. The website is subtropics.org and /frozen music. You can find this page. And this page basically has a little bit of background of what frozen music is like. But I like this picture. This is a good picture. Maybe we can go here. No, well, all right. So imagine that's the image in the. All right.
Yes.
For those interested, that David Dunn album that he mentioned earlier, The Sound of Light and Trees, is on Bandcamp.
Good.
Are you done?
You,
Or
you,
you-
you finished with it before now.
Okay,
Yes,
excellent.
But, we'll be happy to answer more questions if you have them, and or just there's some food outside, I think, right? Okay.
What exactly were you doing?
What I was doing,
Yeah.
I was scanning the room.
Ah, so that's what you were doing.
Yes, I was mapping the room with the microphone.
And then when you go back onto there, what's going on?
Well, when I came back here, I have some sounds that I've Yeah, like Rene are the sounds that are normally used to interact with the room.
So when you say you map the rooms for the optimal sound,
When you guys are done,
fishing
can
for
you
resonance.
remind people about this?
Right,
Yes.
so
I'm
when you move around, depending on the location of the microphone, a tone will come up. It'd be like a sustained sound, and then it would change to another sound. See if I can.
So while he's doing that, I'm working my sounds and leveling them so that they pair with the frequencies in the room. Because if not, then what I'm filling the room with, we just kind of maybe overwhelm the space and now
saturate the space.
yeah, just sit there or sound like it's coming from there rather than just filling the space. So it helps flow.
So then the sound reverberates better through the ceilings when he goes through like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it helps
So-
carry them and move them in space rather than just sort of piped out of the speakers. Which that's happening too, but we're removing that and thinking.
For example,
And that happens immediately from what he's doing there to what you're playing. Is that something that
In some cases it can happen quickly, but in other cases I have to work them because then if not they distort. They won't phase shift. Phenomena won't emerge.
see, that's a resonance.
so the different materials matter, like from the concrete and the wood, how about
Mostly the shape.
the shape is what matters the most.
Yeah, because sound bounces around, right? So depending on the frequency, you have a certain, wavelength, and that has a physical manifestation in space. So if the way, the frequency the space likes most is the one that fits exactly within the room.
Between the troughs and the peak.
Yeah, there you go. So if it begins and ends in the same place, then you'll keep bouncing and bouncing and bouncing.
So the material, the wood and the thing matters less than the shape.
Right, for instance, so let's see, right here, let me see what's going on here. So you have almost 89 frames, right? You want to try to catch a roll. Right now it's keeping a lot because you were playing pretty loud. The space
So it's
it
a
wants, it wants more sound. So what happens is I have to tame the mic. Right now it's jumping around. If I let go a little bit more, you'll hear more sustained sound.
Anyone have any other questions? Yeah?
Yes, where do you guys record all that sound? Where exactly you guys go and record the sound?
A lot of the sounds are captured in this room. A lot of the sounds were captured. So tonight there were sounds captured in the room. There were sounds captured from our previous experience at Bass. There were sounds captured from machines that were commissioned and implemented for the Bass Museum that were done like 2 weeks ago. About 2 weeks ago. So every time that we work in a location, we'll build sounds around that location including in some instances using microphones that we've crafted, sometimes commercial microphones. And then we work with those sounds and tune them as we migrate from space to space, so that they work in the same way that sounds emerge in the real world, right? Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes you're working in certain spaces and you gather resources in that space, but you can migrate them into other spaces, and using, for example, Gustavo's technique, we can tune them to the resonating frequencies in that space to allow new phenomena to emerge. And in some cases that's captured and then it's moved into other spaces. So that the space, so that migration is a part of it as well, as it exists in the natural world. So if you were, in one place and simultaneously occupying another space, let's suppose that we could do that, you can sense that patterns that emerge and move in one place, right, also carry themselves over, dependent on other living organisms in that space. In our cases, the sounds do that, right? They move through the space, but then if we were to perform next month in another space, those patterns would move into that space, but they would be according to the properties of that space. Right? We would remove what was natural, for example, here tonight at Locust, then those sounds would migrate maybe to the Deering state, while new things emerge at the Deering space, things dissipate, disappear, but always in accordance to the properties of that space, so that we're not just coming in and taking over and assuming that we're in charge, but we're trying to accommodate ourselves within the space according to those natural properties, and being mindful of that.
Yeah, but I think what you mean is like, where are the sources? So we make recordings either in the studio or outside, or like I do we do a lot of recording in the Everglades, right? And I didn't play any of those sounds tonight, right? But those are typical of the kinds of sounds that we might use in order to activate the space. So the dynamic is to try to activate the space. Some spaces are actually a lot easier than others, and there's some that are pretty difficult. And depending on the choices that you make before you go into the space, you have an easier job.
Right. And the other question I have, what kind of software do you use to record that sound?
What kind of
Software.
software?
Yeah.
Um,
I know you guys use a special microphone, but
Yes.
also for record that kind of level of sound, I imagine like you probably use software.
yes.
Also,
Well,
I'm curious about it.
the software is, there's many programs that do exactly the same thing. So I can tell you what I use, but you can also use pretty much any digital recorder that
But
can
you're gonna
capture
have the
sound,
same-
right?
Yeah,
Would
but
be-
you're gonna have the same vibration and sound.
Yeah, no, there's
Yeah.
nothing different from one to the other. So
Okay.
whatever you choose or whatever you have access to will work the same. I think it matters more the kind of microphone that you use than the recording device. Okay? And not only the microphone, but also the preamplifier, right? In other words, the quality of the audio depends on the microphone more than it does on everything else. Of course, you want to record at high resolution, right? The higher the resolution, the better the sound, those kinds of things. In terms of software, there's so much of it. And there's actually a lot of free software that you can use for sound recording. Audacity is a program that is free.
I just was curious, like,
And
you
does
guys
a lot
make
of
something
stuff.
specific, like,
Yes.
okay, this is something like a make the sounds vibrate different or?
Well, different programs, because you know what a program is, right?
Of course.
It's a way of thinking. So somebody designs a program the way they want to design it. So you have to learn the way this person thinks when you embrace a program. So it's up to you who thinks more like you. You know what I mean? Otherwise you have a steep learning curve. Because sometimes, like the way some people think is not very intuitive. And so I'm against that. Now, I'm more for the easier, the better, because really, all we want is to record the sound, but to record it, in as high quality as possible.
He's got a question too.
Well, yeah, I was just wondering, I know you kind of answered it earlier, I was still a little confused, like the device that you're using that's mounted on a stick, is it literally beaming like a frequency at something to like
It's a
find a
microphone.
resonance, or?
It's
is
just
it
a microphone, a wireless microphone.
But it's not emitting anything?
No, it's actually, it's sucking up,
Yeah.
and it's listening.
So you're not using any feedback or anything like that?
This is feedback, yes.
Okay, so it's emitting and also.
There's a speaker, it's connected to a speaker.
Oh, okay, I understand.
It's connected to a speaker, and then what you hear, what feedback is, when you hear feedback, it's a resonant frequency in the space.
So it is acoustic, it's not EMFs either?
It's acoustic, it's
Okay.
totally.
Thanks.
Yes. It's totally. And that's, part of the idea. Now, of course, when Rene is doing his thing and all that, it biases what this does, because he's putting sound into the space, right? So the microphone is also picking that up. And so there's a delicate balance between, what he does and, if it's playing too loud, then it's more difficult to find certain things. So it's nice when there's contrast in terms of intensity and it gives you, but because we're used to playing for like hours at a time, then when we get something is happening, you don't want to let it go, because you're learning at that moment, right? Now maybe we're learning, and I'm not sure exactly how much you are, but basically the room is doing something that we find interesting, and then we kind of like, we like to try to figure out, we like to explore that as much as possible. And that's part of the learning process. So we make recordings of our performances, and then we listen to those, and so on.
Just quickly.
All right,
for-
really quickly, we just have time for one more question.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
During the stay, is that gonna be an indoor thing or an outdoor?
Yeah, it's inside the theater.
Okay.
You've been to the theater at the Deer State?
Yes.
Yeah, they have a little theater. It's called the Deer State Black Ghost Theater.
What date is that? What date is that?
It's the 28th and the 29th. So Saturday, the 28th, from 2 to 5.
That's right, Saturday 2 to 5, Sunday 3 to 6.
Right. By the way, on Sunday, if you go at 2, you'll be surprised to experience a talk about a project that I'm doing with my brother. It's a film based on paranormal activity on Deer State. So that sweetens the deal. Okay? So Sunday would be a good time, but if you can make it Sunday, come Saturday. And we'll be there from 2 to 5, and it really, if you can't get there exactly on time, it's not like a regular concert. You're not gonna miss a lot. So, you're welcome to come in at any time. You'll be surprised how much serendipity, it's a good thing. When you get there, it's probably the best time you could have gotten there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Rene. Thank you so much, Gustavo. I'd also like to extend a thanks to the Knight Foundation for generous support of the DiLL. I have one last announcement that we have an upcoming program for artists, for creatives, and anybody working in the creative sectors for pro bono legal advice. So this is a program that we've been offering for a while. It's called Legal Art Link. And we have an upcoming clinic on September 23rd and 24th. I believe that's a Monday and a Tuesday. So as part of the clinic, show up, comes ready with questions, because every artist needs a lawyer, believe it or not. It happens. Anyway, so thank you so much for coming to the DiLL. The workshop is now over. We'll be open for another 30 minutes or so. So enjoy yourselves and come back next Thursday for a VR workshop hosted by ArtBot T from Liz and Bo. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
There's flyers over here too, in case anyone wants any, and you can grab some on the way out. If you'd like further information about any of our workshops, go ahead and sign in with the QR codes that are throughout the building. Thank you, people. Thank you. Thank you.
No, I'm kidding. What? I know you do. What's that? What's wrong? Take care. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm actively starter files and everything that's being provided by the artists.
So you're saying about people performing, or that's, you just meant in general?
In general, here's the thing. So this program is called Locust Projects, and essentially it's